Good evening, everybody. The crisis at our southern border worsens as a new caravan of 2,000 Hondurans have begun their planned trek through Guatemala and on to the southern border of Mexico. This as the Democratic Party leadership on Capitol Hill are in absolute disarray, surrounded with chaos of their own making, still holding the government hostage as they push their radical agenda of open borders and unfettered illegal immigration. Honduran officials are warning the migrants that the leftist caravan organizers have lied to them from the outset for their own political purposes.
We think that they are giving them false hope, telling them that they can come with their kids. They tell them if you take your kids, it's easier to enter the USA and it's easier for you to get an asylum. So they expose the families. They don't care because they just ask them for money. So they sell everything that they have and then they go to this journey.
And tonight we take up the president's efforts to build the wall to help end the crisis that threatens to overrun our southern border. While illegal aliens, drug and sex trafficking, and the entry of terrorists into the United States threaten the nation. We take all of this up with former Trump aide, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino with us tonight. And as the president stays focused on American security, the radical Dems are sowing more confusion within their own party. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi asking President Trump to postpone the State of the Union until the shutdown is ended. She claims she's only concerned about security. But there is a different story now that has materialized that sounds very much like the truth. The Dems, by the way, quickly lost control of the speaker's political gamesmanship and their own messaging. Pelosi orchestrating widening chaos among the Dems after her call to postpone the State of the Union. No one more confused than her number one deputy, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Here he is plainly saying the speech is off completely.
The speaker is the one who invites the president to speak at the joint session, and she has said, as long as government's shut down, we're not going to be doing business as usual. So
the State of the Union is off.
The State of the Union is off.
What if the president, I don't know, responds with no, he wants to keep the date? Any chance that he could convince you otherwise?
No.
Hoyer then tried to walk back his emphatic, straightforward answers, claiming he didn't actually read Pelosi's letter to the president about postponing the State of the Union address. With the lack of communication amongst its entire leadership, is there any hope that the radical Dems will actually meet the president's demands to build a wall? Two Republican congressmen, two leaders of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill, Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz, join us tonight to take up this building chaos within the House Democratic Conference. Also tonight, Red Storm rising, federal prosecutors pursuing a criminal case against Huawei. They allege the Chinese tech giant stole trade secrets from their U.S. business partners. Asia expert Gordon Chang among our guests tonight. Our top story, the radical Dems remain obstinate in their obstruction and prevention of providing the United States with protection on our southern border. Despite his good faith efforts to work with the Dems, President Trump has been met with nothing but indifference and resistance from the likes of Pelosi and Schumer. The president's frustration with Dem leadership today showing a bit. The president tweeted this: "It is becoming more and more obvious that the radical Democrats are a party of open borders and crime. They want nothing to do with a major humanitarian crisis on our southern border. Hashtag 2020. The president's tweet as 2,000 Central American migrants, most of them from Honduras, are moving through Guatemala toward the southern border of Mexico toward the United States. But despite the obvious critical need for the construction of that border wall, one that will end the influx of drugs, human and sex trafficking, criminal illegal immigrants, the Dems stay focused on political gamesmanship and gambits. Nancy Pelosi today sent a letter to the president asking that he postpone the State of the Union because of what she calls security concerns.
This is a very big deal. It is a special security event. This is a housekeeping matter in the Congress of the United States so that we can honor the responsibility of the invitation we extended to the President. You can make it from the Oval Office if you want.
Pelosi based her concerns and her reaction and her call to postpone the president's speech apparently based on the communication with one former official of one unnamed agency. However, Department of Homeland Security officials tell Fox News today that not a single Democratic leader asked about the safety of those attending the president's State of the Union address. They noted, in fact, that the Secret Service stands ready for the event, as always. Joining us tonight, Congressman Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, member of the Judiciary Committee, co-founder of the influential House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, great to have you with us. The Democratic Party looks like it is in total disarray.
Well,
it's stunning what they're doing.
Yeah, if you needed any more proof that they were more focused on stopping the president than they are on helping the country, this is it. I mean, the Speaker of the House doesn't invite or disinvites the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States of America, not to come give the State of the Union address. I mean, this is unbelievable. And you couple that with what happened yesterday, when the president invited Democrats to the White House to talk about getting a solution, building a border security wall, figuring out how we can negotiate this to some kind of end, and they didn't even show up. So not showing up and now not inviting the president to give the annual State of the Union address. This is how much they are focused on stopping the president and how little they are focused on what we need to be doing, which is helping the country.
Well, it looks to me, Congressman, like this just blew up in Pelosi's face, this shallow, I mean, really contemptuous gambit on her part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think where it's really going to matter are in these close districts where a Democrat barely beat a Republican. That seat like the Oklahoma City district, Kendra Horn, who won that seat, right. Joe Cunningham, who won Mark Sanford's seat in South Carolina. I think constituents in those districts are going to start telling their member, wait a minute, go talk to the president. Don't have the State of the Union like we always do in this country. Go tell your leadership to sit down with the president. Let's figure out how to build this border security wall and actually help the country.
Are you at least surprised, a little bit, that Nancy Pelosi did not at least feign interest in what the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security had to say about security, since she used that as her excuse to be as insulting as she knew how to be?
Not really. I mean, remember today's left. They applaud Kaepernick when he disrespects our flag. They embrace Governor Cuomo when he says America was never that great. They cheer on Maxine Waters when she says go out and harass anybody who supports our president. This is today's left. I mean, their very first big hearing they're inviting a convicted felon, Michael Cohen, in to address Congress. And one of the things he's convicted of and going to go to prison for is he lied to Congress. So from this group, nothing should surprise us. But I guess deep down it does a little bit, because this is the State of the Union address.
You know, I almost feel like I should withdraw the question, Congressman, but I'm frankly, I cannot believe the maladroit politics of the left and their indifference to what was once their base. Working men and women, middle-class Americans, small business. They have sold out to, I guess, illegal immigrants, various special interests.
How about those union workers in Youngstown, Ohio? Those union workers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? Those hardworking families? Yes.
Trump Democrats.
Exactly. I've been around. I gave a speech before the election in Youngstown, and there were 500 people who showed up at this Republican event in Youngstown, Ohio. How about those families? They want a wall built. They know it's good for this nation. They know they want this president to keep fighting hard to make sure that happens.
I want to take up, if we may, very quickly here, the letter that you and Congressman Mark Meadows have sent seeking more information about the criminal case against James Baker, the former general counsel of the FBI. Where are you headed here?
Well, the main thing is this is the top lawyer at the FBI. This is their chief counsel, their general counsel, Jim Baker, Comey and McCabe's right-hand man. He's under investigation. He is a subject of investigation by the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut. That is big news. We don't know exactly what all the details and the parameters of that investigation are, but his lawyer told us in the deposition that he's under investigation, and that's why they couldn't answer, Jim Baker couldn't answer certain questions Mark and I had for him in that deposition. We want to know more about that. But the key is this. Andy McCabe, Deputy Director of the FBI, Jim Baker, Chief Counsel of the FBI, two of the ringleaders in this whole effort to go after the president, both under investigation. Both were at the FBI. McCabe was fired. Baker was demoted and then left. And, of course, we got Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, who were also demoted and fired at the FBI. Those were the four ringleaders in this whole sordid affair. We want to get the answers, and that's why we continue to push.
And we should point out that despite all, none of those people you just enumerated have been punished for what is obviously,
not yet,
as you say, we hope, but to this point, not punished in any way for their abuse of power and just flaunting the law and regulations of the two most important federal agencies in law enforcement. Congressman Jim Jordan, as always, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Take care, buddy.
You too. Up next, the left-wing national media toes the Democratic Party line, praising Speaker Pelosi's call to reschedule, to stop, to end, who knows, the President's State of the Union address.
She is reminding Trump she's got power right now. This is up to her.
The Democratic base, I'm sure that her caucus is thrilled by that kind of a show of force.
We are seeing at turn after turn after turn, President Trump underestimating Nancy Pelosi.
Is this Speaker Pelosi trolling Trump?
Yes, to a degree.
It certainly is a power move. She's reminding Donald Trump that this is her domain.
There isn't the security that there should be. It could be very dangerous.
The speaker is basically saying, not in my house, not on my watch, as long as the government is shut down.
Lovely. We'll take that up and much more right after the break. Dan Bongino joins us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. An executive at the Air Traffic Controllers Union irresponsibly today claiming the government shutdown has made flying less safe than a month ago. The FAA contradicted those comments, saying immediately, quote, "The traveling public can be assured that our nation's airspace system is safe." And joining us tonight, Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, author, extraordinary talent of Silver Screen and whatever other screen you happen to see him on. Good to see you on our screen tonight. Dan, thanks.
It's good to be here.
Let's turn to this nonsense right now of a president having to contend with the Democratic Party that is clearly trying to obstruct everything he does. The temerity of a House Speaker to sit there and effectively lie about her security concerns, not having talked to the Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security. It's astonishing.
Lou, let's point out the obvious first. Don't you find it a little bit ironic, my friend, that Nancy Pelosi wants to shut down the State of the Union for a lack of security, with the dreaded air quotes, when she wants to do nothing about the border where there's no security at all? Like, has that irony jumped out to anyone in the media yet? And let me say this as a former Secret Service agent as well, a job I was very proud of. This is disgusting. This is a disgraceful conversation. Lou, I know you've met Secret Service agents in the past. These are the finest men and women I have ever worked with in my life. I don't work there. They don't pay me to say this. I've been gone for a long time. It was an honor to work with them. These aren't mercenaries. They're not sitting there waiting for their paycheck to get their job done. They put themselves in the line of fire every single day because they love this country and they're patriots, not politicians. Nancy Pelosi owes them a very heartfelt apology, a sincere apology, and it better be legitimate because this was disgraceful.
You know, if she decides to start apologizing, you're going to watch a huge line form. Not many people are going to expect it. And I know the Secret Service agents who put up with and I will just say this, I've seen Secret Service agents put up with a lot of personalities that I'm not entirely sure how that training works, but it does work. And they're absolute gentlemen, as well as being courageous and skilled at protecting the president and everyone else in the assignment. Right. Let's turn to, if we may, the idea that we have another caravan coming north. The Mexican government is apparently permitting its transport through the heart of Mexico to our southern border. And we've got a Pelosi-led Democratic chaos called a party that is refusing to secure the nation. This president, what is he to do?
I mean, Lou, think about it, right? Why would these caravans not come north? We're doing nothing about it. Right. I mean, the president's taken a stand, but the Democrats are clearly committed at this point to outrageous talking points and open borders. I mean, think about this. How many times have you heard on television over the past week the absolutely ridiculous, absurd statement that walls don't work? I mean, I was on Fox last night. I debated a liberal, a friend of mine, but said, oh, walls don't work because they can build tunnels.
Wait a minute.
And I said, well, why would they...
I want to write this down.
Yeah.
Bongino has liberal friends.
Don't hold it against me. But the argument back was, well, they build tunnels because there's a wall. I said, don't you get the point? Like, that's what an obstruction does. That's what a physical barrier does. Oh, they could get a ladder. Yeah, you know what? You could get a pick for a door lock, too, Lou. That doesn't mean you don't put a lock on the door. It's an obstruction. I mean, these conversations are so ridiculous. We're all dumber for having them. But liberals insist on sticking to these talking points.
Now, remember, it was your idea to talk with that liberal, not mine.
I like debating because, Lou, I can tell you this, as a friend and as a guy I respect, I know we're on the right side of this. And when you're debating on the right side of this, all they have is focus group tested talking points. We have the truth.
We have the truth. We also have the President of the United States, who's on the right side of every major issue facing this country. Right. He's already demonstrated in the first 2 years in office. He's a historic president in what he's achieved. And for the American working man and woman to sit there and watch the Democratic Party behave like this, how could they possibly feel that they're the base, that they are even part of the calculus on the part of these shallow, indifferent so-called leaders of the Democratic Party? There's only one president working for working men and women, their families, the middle class families in this country. And he said he's going to work for all Americans. And guess what? Unemployment rates have fallen for every single demographic to historically low levels. And I don't quite understand how anyone in this country right now could even think about voting for a Democrat.
Lou, this president frightens them to death because he's simply not interested in a favor game. He doesn't need their money. He doesn't need their PR. But he does need one thing, Lou. He needs his base and the people who got him elected. And this president knows that. And other presidents in the past couldn't have cared any less if they had to expand, decrease the bit, whatever. This president cares about the people who voted him into office. And you know what? That's a novelty in politics. Sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah, and I think that not only does he need his base, and obviously they, him, but what is exciting to me, even as we are in the midst of this pivotal moment in American history, is that this president has an opportunity to reach out to Democrats, to what was once the left in this country, and bring them into the Trump middle, if you will. He is a man who is expanding his base, while the Democrats are shunning the very people who constituted the constituency of the Democratic Party for decades. No more.
Yeah, and we've already seen it, Lou. The Electoral College results speak for themselves. The win in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, a state called by Republicans fool's gold forever because Republicans had chased it only to be stymied typically. Who wins it? Who wins it? Donald J. Trump figured out a way to talk to people who work for a living, and that frightens the heck out of the Democrats, too.
And we do have to discount one thing. They seem to be easily frightened, so we won't overanalyze that. Dan, great to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you.
Dan Bongino.
Thanks a lot.
A witness in the trial of El Chapo Guzman claims the drug lord paid former Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto a $100 million bribe in order to call off a manhunt for Guzman. The witness claims El Chapo, as he's known, gave the former president the bribe in 2012, right before he took office. Nieto denied receiving any bribes, and a spokesperson for the former president called the allegations, quote, false and defamatory. Former President Felipe Calderon, also accused of accepting bribes during his presidency. As a matter of fact, nearly every Mexican president over the last 40 years has been accused of bribery and corruption. We'd like to hear what you think about the level of corruption in Mexico. Share your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Up next, Huawei is about to be hit with criminal charges for stealing trade secrets from U.S. companies. Asia expert Gordon Chang joins me right after the break with that and much, much more. Stay with us. The Justice Department is pursuing a criminal investigation of Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei. The Justice Department says Huawei stole trade secrets related to a robotic device under development by T-Mobile. The criminal case originated from a 2014 civil case in Seattle involving T-Mobile and Huawei. An indictment is, we are told, expected soon. Joining us tonight, columnist, author, Asia expert Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to have you here.
Thanks, Lou.
The Huawei, ZTE, their heads rise up again and in the worst sorts of ways. That is, doing again what they've been accused of, stealing, thievery, espionage against the United States and our companies.
Yeah. Huawei was formed in 1987. Look, it didn't become the world's largest manufacturer of telecom equipment and the second largest manufacturer of cell phones by actually doing this itself. It had help. It stole a lot of technology from Cisco, obviously from T-Mobile, others that we don't know about. And the Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army supported Huawei. That's what we're competing against, Lou. ZTE is a little bit of a different story, but basically the same narrative.
And it is, again, a narrative that involves espionage against the United States, the theft of our technology, the theft of our intellectual property. And for the life of me, I do not understand why we are negotiating an end to thievery, to the just destruction of our defense system by these Chinese companies.
Yeah, look,
which, as you say, are run by the PLA, the Communist Party.
These guys steal hundreds of billions of dollars a year. People argue over how much that is. Some people say 600 billion, some a little bit less. But the point is, they're taking the lifeblood of U.S. innovation,
and they're doing it in broad daylight. They're doing it in the open, in the clear. And we have no one saying, this is an act of war.
Yeah.
What the hell would it take to say this is an act of war?
You know, it's only been in the
last
4 years that the Justice Department has gone after Chinese theft. You know, we saw it in the last 2 years of the Obama administration. We've seen it in 2 years of the Trump administration. You know, before that, you know, Chinese companies were stealing the U.S. blind, and nobody was doing anything about it.
Report after report over the course of the past 2 decades about front companies, Chinese front companies, carrying out espionage against our corporations, against our military-industrial complex. Nothing happens. Nothing. And the president goes after ZTE and Huawei, his administration, and you could hear President Xi squealing all the way from Beijing.
Right.
And meanwhile, the unregistered foreign agents on Wall Street, as Vice President Mike Pence famously called them, are squealing right along with them in defiance of U.S. interest and the Trump administration's goals in balancing trade and ending the theft of intellectual property. This is scurrilous on the part of this corporate establishment.
Right, and you hear it all the time, you know, they say, oh, you know, this is Trump's trade war. No, it's not. This is President Trump seeking a remedy for the theft of U.S. IP. And it's not just us, Lou. You know, the Poles, everybody else are now going after Huawei.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not one of those guys who needs a coalition of the willing to see clearly and to want to get to do the right thing. I am so sick of us needing a partner, a coalition, a multinational approach to when we are absolutely assaulted and ripped off by a trading partner, in this case, a communist trading partner, China, and we're supposed to negotiate with these these characters? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the thing is, when you start to look at what the administration has started to do with ZTE, with the 7-year ban.
How many companies does that leave the Chinese that could step up? We're talking about ZTE and Huawei. How many companies, technology companies, telecommunications companies, advanced technology companies do the Chinese have? I mean, it is a tsunami that could reach across the global business landscape.
Which it does. You look at the Fortune 500, all of them.
My point being, what's the big deal about 2 of them?
Well, you got to start somewhere. And the one thing.
We're barely started. We started, and then the president decided, because President Xi begged him to save some jobs, relented.
I think what happened on ZTE, Lou, is that Trump said, look, I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. They didn't do the right thing, so we're now going after Huawei. It's not only the Iran sanctions, it's also this criminal probe you just talked about. It's going to be across the board.
Militarily, China is making a lot of noises, bellicose, belligerent, threatening, and it's almost as if their military commission wants a conflict. Do you think that, first of all, we're going to oblige them, and just how serious a threat is this to the United States right now?
This is extremely serious. What's happening inside the Chinese military has become extremely arrogant, extremely bellicose, and now you have Xi Jinping, the ruler of China, is insecure. I think what we're seeing right now is what we saw in the 1930s in Japan, where you had an officer corps go off the rails, take over the political system.
You think it's that bad?
I think it's extremely bad. We had our chief of naval operations, our most senior admiral in Beijing over the weekend. He's talking cooperation with the Chinese, and the Chinese on the other side are talking about killing Americans. 10,000 Americans, one admiral said last month. This is just wrong. When you go over there, you don't say these things.
The chief of our naval operations, to be sitting there patiently listening to these Chinese top officers start talking about Taiwanese independence and tell them what they would do if the United States Navy were to intervene in support of Taiwan independence. It's enough to make you want to be sure we do intervene in Taiwan independence.
Well, absolutely. We do need to tell the Chinese that they've got to back off. But, there's one thing about this meeting. You had Richardson say, look, we need to have dialogue. We need to have cooperation. No. Our problem with China is not dialogue. We have lots of dialogue with the Chinese. Yeah. The problem is Beijing's hostility right now.
This president was elected by reminding people that talk is cheap and actually doing something is very tough. He's demonstrating how much he can do in 2 years. And the folks who want to blather need to stay on television and let this president carry on with the job that mercifully he has. Gordon Chang, great to have you here.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks so much. The Chinese are annoying, aren't they? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? We'll explore that in the weeks and months ahead. Up next, and a step closer to justice, a judge ordering former Obama officials to actually answer questions about Benghazi and the Clinton email scandal. We'll be right back. A federal judge has ruled former Obama administration officials Susan Rice, Ben Rhodes, must answer written questions under oath about the Benghazi terror attacks. Judicial Watch investigating whether the 2012 terrorist attacks were a factor in keeping Mrs. Clinton's emails secret. A post-discovery hearing will be held at a later date to determine whether Hillary Clinton and her former chief of staff, Cheryl Mills, can be deposed in precisely the same way. Think about that. We're talking about almost 7 years. 7 years to get answers to questions. Well, joining us tonight, Congressman Matt Gaetz, a member of the House Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. And Congressman, it's great to have you with us. I want to, if I did not say this, Judge Royce Lamberts is to be congratulated for making this decision. I think it's terrible that it's taken 7 years, but thank God we've got judges like Lamberts to make such decisions.
Well, unfortunately, Lou, there won't really be accountability here because the prior Justice Department gave out so many immunity deals to Hillary Clinton associates before ever knowing the extent to which they may have been involved in criminal behavior. And so, I think that the opportunity for us to have gotten some real consequence for the people who broke the law, unfortunately, has likely passed because Jeff Sessions was so slow kind of on the uptake and taking the reins of the Department of Justice. But I have to go back to your last segment on China, Lou. I think that
before you do
that,
sure. Can I say I've been reduced in this instance and I am genuinely pleased by the judge's decision because I would just like to see some scintilla of truth emerge about Benghazi from our officialdom, the United States government. It would be splendid to see.
Well, what happened.
That's how I've been worn down over the course of the past 7 years on Benghazi.
Well, we know what happened. It's not like this is some great mystery we still have to solve. There was a situation where Hillary Clinton was more worried about geopolitical balance than she was about the safety of the Americans who were having to ward off a terrible attack in defense of our ambassador in a circumstance that had been erupting for quite some time. And so, it's not like history will have some great question as to what occurred. It's just that the people who were engaged in the worst conduct won't be held accountable because the Congress is an inept institution at holding people accountable.
Well, certainly some conferences that it are. One comes to mind, but we won't go there. You were fascinated by my brilliant interview earlier with Gordon Chang in China. I want to remind you of that question.
Absolutely. And there's an important point here. While the government is shut down, President Trump is still working very hard to make this country richer. One of the ways we can do that in recognizing the realities about China that were in your last segment is to have reciprocal trade. It is outrageous to me, Lou, that China can put 25% tariffs on U.S. cars. We put a 2.5% tariff on the cars that are coming over internationally here. And we don't give our president the authority to immediately put tariffs on other countries that put tariffs on us. And if we did that, they wouldn't abuse us so much. We'd actually get better trade deals because we wouldn't be the laughingstock of the world, unwilling to fight back when other countries put the American worker behind the 8 ball.
And Congressman, I want to give you credit. You're a co-sponsor of the legislation. Congressman Sean Duffy with us last night talking about what had happened to a number of co-sponsors right after the Koch brothers, the Chamber of Commerce, the Cardinal himself, Tom Donahue, who has run the chamber for years, representing business, big business, multinationals, and the hell with the national interest. Congratulations to all of you who are working to give the president the tools to deal with these extraordinary trade deficits. And people don't even realize what happens to our economic growth rate as a result of those deficits. But good for you.
But this president will take them on, Lou. I mean, the difference is that presidents that are Republican and Democrat in the past have been the valets for the special interests on K Street and the multinational companies. Those people didn't elect Donald Trump. Donald Trump was elected in spite of the millions of dollars that big business put against him. So he has a unique opportunity to actually fight for the American worker. And where you look at where this 2020 election is going to be won, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, there are a lot of people there who want a fair shake at putting the best product out into the world without being the laughingstock as a consequence of bad trade deals. Reciprocal trade will get the job done, and I'm glad that even during the shutdown, this president is fighting for fair reciprocal trade.
Absolutely, and I think we ought to also point out something. The very people who are attacking this president are the U.S. multinationals and the business lobbyists and the big companies that own fake news, that is the news media, who are attacking this president because he means to go after them and to represent the working man and woman, their families, and the middle class of this country, small businessmen and women. And right now, they're going to be.
But will the Democrats
I'll make a
join
prediction for you. There will be more Trump Democrats than anyone can possibly imagine by 2020.
I'd love to find a few of them in Congress, Lou, to join us in this bill because a lot of Democrats represent these districts in Michigan and Pennsylvania, Minnesota. And what are they going to say to their workers when multinational companies keep trying to offshore jobs? And we've got this president and a few Republicans fighting for the American worker. We could use a few of those pro-Trump Democrats here in the Congress.
Well, go to work, Congressman. Go to work. We know you will and have. Congressman Matt Gaetz, good to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.